Hello everyone, welcome back to Reading with Raptors. I am here today with one of our resident great horned owls, a subarctic great horned owl who we call Samantha, or Sam for short. This is a bird who's been here at the Raptor Center for 29 years, so she's at least 30 or 31 years old at this point. We're not quite sure, since she was brought in as an adult bird. She just was handed a small piece of rat that she ate and is now doing what's called feeking, which is rubbing her beak on that perch that she's standing on, which helps kind of clean off the beak, as well as helps to sharpen it and kind of keep it in shape. Beaks are made out of the same material as your fingernails, along with hair and feathers and all that good stuff, but really similar in kind of feeling to your fingernails, that kind of hard but potentially kind of flaky and softened material. So rubbing beaks on perches like this perch or branches or rocks or things like that is how raptors can help keep their beaks in the proper shape. You see a lot of birds doing this actually outside for the same reason, keeping those beaks in the perfect shape. Beaks are usually very well suited to a particular job. For raptors, the curved, sharp beak shape is great for tearing food into pieces. For lots of other birds, their beaks are really well suited to either cracking open seeds, catching insects, all sorts of different activities that birds might get into. So, now that she's done some kind of interesting things to start us off, I want to say we're going to be reading a book. This one's kind of an older book, but has some really detailed illustrations that I was really excited about. It's called Tiger with Wings, the Great Horned Owl. This is by Barbara Esbensen and illustrated by Mary Barrett Brown. And I love just even right away here on the book, you can actually see these little, they're called papillae, these little kind of speckles or kind of dots, what it looks like on this great horned owl's foot. The actual inside of a great horned owl's foot has these nice kind of small bumps on them that help them grip onto perches or grip onto the small animals that they're grabbing onto. And I hardly ever seen that actually drawn out, so I was really excited when I saw this book cover. You can also see all the detail in the feathers, and then also the actual proper arrangement of feet on an owl. You can kind of see behind us, the great horned owl is sitting with kind of 2 toes in the front and 2 in the back. This owl that's been illustrated here, you can see it's reaching out with kind of 2 toes in front, 2 in the back. Pretty unique trait for owls among raptors. Owls and osprey are the only raptors that can do this, this is a foot arrangement called zygodactyl, which means that they can move this kind of outer toe, they can move it back and forth. Or I guess it would be this one over here. To tell the kind of drawing, but you can see how this one's kind of tucked in over here on the side, whereas most raptors, they have 3 toes in the front and 1 in the back, and they can't move any of them from that arrangement. So owls can kind of move that toe back and forth. So I was really excited right away when I saw this one. So we're going to read a bit about the great horned owl. Again, this is Barbara Esbensen, illustrated by Mary Barrett Brown. So let's take a look. The great horned owl is such a fierce hunter that it is often compared to a tiger. Like the tiger, the great horned owl hunts in the dark and it kills instantly. Its stripes let it blend in with the forest patterns of dim light and shadow. Its 2-inch feather tufts look like a tiger's ears, and it has a face like an angry cat. It is a tiger with wings. A tiger that can fly almost unseen through the darkness. So here we have a picture of a kind of spectral tiger here in the background. You can see kind of the shadow in comparison to this great horned owl. You can see kind of the stripes, the big kind of rounded face, the giant eyes. I was just doing a program right before this where we were comparing and talking about how owls often remind me of cats, a lot of the same behaviors and adaptations to hunting in low lights. So the tiger comparison is very accurate. Gliding in soundless flight, the great horned owl uses its eyes and its ears to find food. It will always return with something. It is an accurate hunter whose powerful silent dive means certain death for any unsuspecting prey. Just before it strikes, the owl's head snaps back, its tail goes down, and its feet stretch forward to grab the kill. Each powerful foot has 4 toes. Each toe ends in a talon as sharp as a razor blade. The talon is curved like a pirate's cutlass, and it is as deadly. When the talons strike an animal, they spread wide apart and lock onto it. So here we have this great horned owl swooping down. You see that tail coming forward, its head tilting back, those feet reaching forward for this delicious skunk down here on the ground. There we go. The prey usually dies immediately. The owl uses its sharp, curved beak to tear larger food into small pieces, but it swallows small animals whole. It may carry its dinner, grasped in one powerful foot, to a perch on a limb. Owls never carry food in their beaks. The great horned owl's wingspread is more than 50 inches. The wings and talons are so strong that it can carry a heavy animal, such as a skunk, to a branch as high as 60 feet above the ground. Skunks are one of this owl's most common meals. Although the great horned owl has an amazing sense of sight and hearing, its sense of smell is pretty weak. The odor of the skunk doesn't really affect it at all. The great horned owl will eat bats, flying squirrels, rabbits, woodchucks, mice, an occasional cat, and even another owl. It swallows everything: fur, bones, and claws. Later, the owl coughs up the indigestible parts of its prey in little packages of bones and fur called pellets. Finding owl pellets on the ground is a sure sign an owl has a nest nearby. So here is that great horned owl carrying away a skunk. You can see how that foot arrangement with the 4 toes, kind of 2 in the front and 2 in the back, can help it hold on to that. Often might be using 2 feet as well to kind of help carry that away. And then here is a little illustration of what that pellet might look like. A lot of times those bones are even further inside with the kind of fur over the top. Some great vocalizations from our great horned owl guest here. Right now, this time of year, our great horned owls are making a lot of noise still. And if you have any great horned owls near you, it's a great time to try to spot them since you can hear them. They're making a lot of noise right now because of their nesting season, which we are about to read about right now. Here's the kind of full illustration. I'll kind of bring this off to the side a little bit more so we can keep an eye on our great horned owl guest. In most species, the male birds have brighter feathers than the females and attract their mates with brilliant plumage. Many male birds are larger than their mates, but the plumage of male and female great horned owls is exactly the same, and the female is actually the larger one, often as tall as 25 inches. Both male and female have brown and rusty and tan feathers. The colors form striped patterns over most of their large bodies and wide spreading wings. Sketchy brown stripes decorate their breasts. Under their chins, a feathery ruff forms a snowy neckpiece. Early in winter, the great horned owls of the northern forests begin to call. Hoo-hoo, hoo, 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 hoo. The cold, dark air echoes with their booming voices. They can shriek or wail or growl. Their voices can even sound like barking dogs. Over and over, the owls hoot at one another, and their mysterious sounds travel from one part of the forest to another. They will even hoot back at a person who walks through the forest at night, hooting at them under the winter sky. The sound grows louder each night as great horned owls begin to look for mates. Most birds do not mate and raise their families until spring. Other owls look for nesting places and lay their eggs in late winter. But the great horned owls start their families earlier than any of their relatives. Their eggs are laid during the early days of February. In northern climates, this means that the eggs are laid when the weather is snowy and freezing cold. So here you can see one of the great horned owls coming up to this perch while another one is maybe calling at a distance. You can see that kind of nice feather pattern. They look pretty much the same. This book, most of these great horned owls are pretty typical of what you would see for most of North, Central, and South America. The great horned owl that we have here with us today is, like I said, a subarctic great horned owl, which means that she's from very far north What you might expect to see in the northern parts of the US and Canada is more of what this bird might look like. So the great horned owls near you may look something like the birds in the book, or might look kind of like this great horned owl here, depending on where you live. Here's our picture here. There we go. When a male owl finds a mate, he fluffs his feathers, spreads his wings, and bobs up and down on a branch in front of her. Then he launches himself off of his perch and shoots high into the night air. Tumbling and falling, he does a series of impressive air swoops and ground loops before returning to the branch. There, he hops and bows and turns around. He snaps his beak and jumps along the branch to his own rhythmic beat. If this courtship dance attracts the female owl, she fluffs her feathers too and joins her partner, hopping and bobbing along the limb, keeping time to the same silent rhythm. They snap their beaks at each other, making the clickety-clack sound of castanets under the winter stars. Then the two birds rub their heads and beaks together, face each other, and hoot together into the frosty night. Great horned owls often mate for life. During courtship, the male often leaves the branch to find food for his mate. He spreads his enormous wings and floats off through the forest. His wide, rounded wings do not make a sound as they move through the cold air. So here's a drawing, the snowy kind of covered branch as these two make all of those different courtship displays. You can see one kind of puffed up, one kind of spreading out the wings. The male might kind of leave and bring back some food to offer to the female. Maybe a way of saying, hey, look at how good I am at finding food. We will have tons of food for any babies that we have. Which makes a lot of sense. You want to make sure that your partner is able to find food, so you're not doing all the work yourself. If you're a great horned owl, it might not be possible to successfully raise your chicks if your partner is not also good at hunting. So owls that hunt at night have soft edges on their flight feathers. The feathers on the surface of their wings are like velvet. Owl bones are paper thin and filled with air, so these great wings give the owl a tremendous amount of lift. When the owl pumps its wings, the rushing air is trapped in the soft feathers and the sound is muffled. These soft feathers cover the great horned owl's entire body. Even its legs and all four toes are covered with soundproofing velvet muffs. The great horned owl must fly silently so that it can hear the slightest sound. If its own wings made any noise, it would not be able to locate its prey. So here are some drawings of these beautiful feathers that great horned owls have. You can see the camouflage. You can see the kind of rounded shape of the wing here. Here are some of these fluffy feathers that might help insulate and kind of muffle that sound, as well as trap warm air close to the owl's body, keeping it nice and toasty warm. I think velvety is a good description of what these feathers feel like. There actually is this kind of extra layer of fluff on the surface of the feathers, and velvet is probably the best descriptor for it. That's really what it feels like. Although the feathery horns on the great horned owl's great horned owl's head, look like ears, they are only feathers. The owl can raise and lower them. The owl's real ears are long, narrow holes on either side of its skull. Scientists believe that great horned owls probably use their amazing sense of hearing even more than their sharp eyesight. The ear holes are nearly as long as the owl's head, and the eardrum is the largest of any birds. Besides having an inner ear, owls are the only birds with an outer ear too, a small, thin flap of skin that catches sound waves just the way human ears do. The ear flap is slightly higher on one side of the great horned owl's head than on the other side. This positioning lets sound into the ears from different directions. The ear flap is hidden under the ruff of short, flattened feathers you can see around each big yellow eye. Those feathers are called the owl's facial disc. They give owls a face that looks almost human. The owl can move its facial disc back and forth a little. It may be that the circle of stiff feathers help direct sound into the owl's ears. So you can see this kind of big round, I'll see if I can kind of point out the big kind of round face that this owl has. Her ears are the large holes right behind those black lines on the sides of her face. So you can see how that nice kind of short, stiff feathers on her face might help to funnel sound into her ears. Here's another picture close up of an owl's face. Like its ears, the great horned owl's eyes are perfectly suited for life as a nighttime hunter. All owls can see in daylight, and a few owls fly and hunt during the day. But because the great horned owl's eyes are extremely sensitive to light, it hunts at night and sleeps during the day. The great horned owl's eyes are 100 times more acute than human eyes. They can be focused instantly to see either near or far. While human eyes have cone cells that allow us to see color and rod cells that gather light, the great horned owl's eyes have mostly rod cells. It has so few cone cells that it might only be able to see in black and white, not very much color at least. But the smallest amount of light from a few stars is enough to let this owl hunt at night. Owls have an upper eyelid with lashes made of feathers. The owl can blink its eyes just like a person can. No other bird has an upper eyelid. But all birds raise a bottom eyelid when they sleep, and great horned owls have this lid too. In addition, they have a transparent third eyelid that flips across the owl's eyes from one side to the other like a windshield wiper. It acts as a safety covering when the owl is flying or when the light is suddenly too strong. Like the eyes in a human face, both of the owl's eyes face forward so that, like humans, they have binocular vision. This means that owls see things as rounded shapes, not flat, and lets them judge distances very accurately. An owl's eyes are nearly the same size as a human's, but its head is much smaller, so the eyes seem enormous. For hundreds of years, owls were thought to be particularly wise. Their staring, human appearance, and nocturnal habits made people think that they knew mysterious and important things. Actually, ravens, geese, and crows are often much smarter than owls. The owl's brain is smaller than those two eyes together. I will say in defense of owls, owls are very good, very smart at doing exactly what they need to do. But in terms of maybe problem solving or social skills, some of those other birds might have a bit of an edge on them. Owls are very good at solving problems like how to eat food and how to catch food, things like that. Not so much figuring out logic puzzles like we think of when we think of birds that are very, very intelligent. So owls are very good at what they do. The owl's big eyes don't move from side to side the way human eyes do. To see something to the right or left, an owl must turn its head. People have 7 neck bones, so a person can look no farther than over each shoulder. The owl has 14 very flexible neck bones. It can actually swivel its head to see what's directly behind it, while the rest of its body is still facing forward. Then the owl can whip its head to the front again so fast it looks almost as though it has revolved completely, like a spinning top. Owls are not good nest builders. They always try to find something ready-made if they can. Great horned owls are usually birds of the trees. These birds are found, however, throughout the entire United States except Hawaii and Canada. So if they live in a treeless place, they will put together a straggling nest on the edge of a cliff or on a pile of rocks above the desert floor. In the northern woods, the great horned owl often adds some feathers, leaves, and sticks to a hole in a hollow tree. If they can find the roomy nest of another big bird, like an eagle or a hawk, they will take it over as their own. Since it is wintertime, the builder of the nest has usually left for warmer climates. But if the builder returns, the great horned owl puffs up its feathers until it seems to be twice its normal size, while hissing and snapping its dangerous beak. Even eagles have been known to retreat after trying to reclaim a nest from a great horned owl. So here is a picture of a drawing of a great horned owl turning its head to face straight backwards. And here is a picture, or a drawing, excuse me, of a great horned owl doing that kind of threat or defensive display. They'll kind of tilt their wings forward, clack their beak, their eyes look really big and wide. So it's quite an intimidating sight, especially for something like an eagle or a hawk. These look absolutely massive and very scary when they're doing that big defensive display. Very effective. Egg laying begins while snow is still falling, ice is still on the lakes, and the air is freezing cold. The mother owl pulls her softest feathers from the underside of her body and lines the nest with them. The part of her body where she has removed these feathers is called her brood patch. Then she lays 2 or sometimes 3 round white eggs the size of jumbo chicken eggs with a rough shell. The mother owl lays them 2 or 3 days apart. Her brood patch is very warm, and she keeps all the eggs safe under her body so that they will be able to hatch. Her mate brings her food so that she does not have to leave the nest and expose the eggs to the cold. Sitting there unmoving on the nest for 4 weeks in the falling snow, she may sometimes look like a big white statue of an owl. I love this illustration. It's this beautiful winter scene, some mountains in the background, this amazing tree, and way up here in this snow-covered nest is this snow-covered owl. You can just see the little shape of those feather tufts. So definitely you can see this, especially here in Minnesota and the rest of the northern US, where we're often still getting snow for a month or two while these owls are nesting. You'll see them using their nice insulating feathers to keep them nice and toasty warm, even when they're getting snowed on while sitting in their nest. The first laid egg begins to hatch sometime during the 4th week. The other eggs hatch 3 or 4 days apart, so there are owlets of different ages and sizes in the nest at the same time. They are covered with tiny, soft white feathers called down. This downy coat helps them stay warm, snuggled beneath the big wings and brood patch of their mother. Baby owls are about the size of baby chicken chicks, but they are not able to take care of themselves the way that baby chickens or ducklings can. A baby chicken can run around and scratch for food soon after hatching from the egg, and baby ducklings can swim soon after they hatch. But owlets are helpless. They can't stand up. Their big heads wobble on skinny necks, and their eyes do not open until they are 10 days old. Even after their eyes are open, the owlets stay under their parents' wings for a month. So here are those babies, or here's the first baby that hatched. You can see it has its eyes closed. It's almost laying down. It's not even really able to sit all the way upright, and it's covered with a little layer of fluffy white down that they'll soon grow out of, but takes a little bit of time. Here's that adult great horned owl looking on. You can see the big fluffy feet that would help keep this owl nice and toasty warm while providing warmth for those babies. Let's find out what happens next with these owlets. Great horned owls are always dangerous birds, but with babies in the nest, they are at their most ferocious. They might attack anything that comes near, clawing with sharp talons and deadly beak. Most animals and other large birds stay away from the nest of a great horned owl. At nightfall, first one and then the other parent sails out in search of food for the babies. They may each make as many as a dozen trips back and forth with food for the ravenous owlets. The young owls stay in the nest until they are 5 weeks old, and they don't try to fly until they're about 10 weeks old. So here is that parent owl. Looks like they've brought back a nice mouse here and are pulling off a piece of it to feed to these young owlets. You can see that fluffy down has really grown in and fluffed out. And here you can see all of their beaks are open. I'd be willing to bet that these owlets are making little food begging calls, little chirping calls, or little kind of squawking calls that tell the parents, hey, I'm hungry, please feed me. So here's that adult owl doing just that. Sorry, these drawings are pretty cute. As they grow larger, the owlets become too big to crowd into the nest with their mother. By the time they are 45 days old, they have lost their down and their new feathers are coming in. Although the days become warmer, the nights are still cold. These new feathers help them stay warm outside the nest. The owlets can now flop out onto the branch, calling while their parents are out hunting for food. No longer helpless, they still remain close to the nest. They can't fly, but they can use their claws to move about on a branch. And they can hiss and look fierce if something comes near them. Here is kind of a close-up of these owlets. Here are the 3 youngsters that hatched. You can see a little bit difference in size. The one on the end is kind of puffing up those feathers. Maybe another bird is flying nearby or something like that. And they need to do that little defensive display that they learned from their parents. After the owlets are 10 weeks old, the parents begin to teach them to fly. Instead of bringing food to the babies, the parents fly to a branch nearby and dangle food so the hungry owlets can see it. At first, the owlets flutter and flap and crash land on the ground below, but they are hungry and they claw their way up to a branch and try again. Soon, they are able to make use of the lift of air under their wings and they fly. Even after the owlets can fly, parents feed them and protect them. They can't yet hunt for themselves, so they fly behind their parents through the warm nights, crying out for food. Here's this very kind of disheveled looking young owl, maybe right after kind of crash landing onto the ground, still figuring out how to fly. Not quite as graceful as its parents yet, but still learning. Sorry, this is the one I was giggling about when I turned the page. I was looking through this book earlier, but this particular drawing I thought was especially charming. Trying to kind of watch those kind of like awkward youngsters. This is kind of a great horned owl's kind of younger, almost teenager phase. So there's a lot of awkwardness to go around. They kind of learn how to be an adult great horned owl. It's a lot of skills they need to learn. Okay, here we go. Thought I skipped a page for a second. After a night of hunting, the great horned owl usually flaps back to its own tree to sleep until the sun sets again. Sometimes, however, the owl lands on a branch where it can easily be seen and fall asleep there. If other birds such as crows, jays, and even smaller ones notice it, they will caw and cry at the sleepy owl. Although the owl could unfurl its huge wings and dive on these noisy birds, it doesn't. Instead, it slowly flaps away from their raucous cries and goes to a secluded perch to sleep until evening comes. Oh, we've got some preening going on here. I think she must be working on kind of underside of her tail, making sure everything's nice and clean and orderly. See if she keeps on doing some of that preening. By midsummer, the young owls are bringing down their own food. Many families of owls stay together and share their kills until the youngsters are a year old and go off to start their own families. In the past, angry farmers shot and killed many great horned owls, which are the only owls to take the occasional chicken, in addition to their regular diet of mice, rabbits, rats, and other rodents. In some areas, owls started becoming scarce. Now, however, farmers appreciate the great horned owls. They appreciate that great horned owls kill many more rodents than chickens. New respect for them has made life for the great horned owl safer in North America. All owls are now protected by national and state governments, and it is unlawful to kill or capture an owl. Even zoos need a special permit to keep one. The great horned owl has become recognized as an important part of our environment, whose excellent hunting abilities help to keep down the population of mice and other small animals. No one knows how many of these magnificent birds there are today. They stay hidden by day, and it would be difficult to find and count them in their forest territory at night. But naturalists think that the great horned owls exist in enough numbers to ensure their survival for years and years to come. So here's a great horned owl being chased off by some blue jays in a really interesting social behavior called mobbing that these especially fairly social, kind of intelligent birds tend to do. These blackbirds and blue jays and crows, birds like that. That is the last page. I'm gonna see if there's an illustration on this last page though. Oh, there is a little bit more text here. 36 million years ago, great horned owls flew through the dark skies of our world. Fossil remains show that they have changed very little since then. Now we have a new understanding of the importance of great horned owls and increased concern for their survival. They should still be hooting and calling under a winter moon 36 million years from now. So here is a great horned owl underneath that nice wintry moon. I will say this particular book is from, I believe, 1991. So luckily since then, almost 30 years ago, my goodness, 30 years ago, great horned owls and a lot of other raptors were in a little bit more trouble than they are nowadays. In 1991, we still had a couple of other raptors on the endangered species list, like bald eagles and peregrine falcons, whereas now we know that these great horned owls especially have adapted really well to living close by to people. There are lots of other owl species that have lost habitat, and we're kind of worried about their populations and wondering what that's going to look like as those owls adapt to having more people in forested areas or fewer forests and fewer grasslands where they might live and hunt. But great horned owls actually adapt really well to living near people. They're normally doing a lot of kind of standing up in nice kind of occasional trees, like having nice open areas to hunt in, which is a lot of our kind of city and suburb kind of spaces. And they're usually hunting a lot of the small animals that live near where there are a lot of people, are squirrels and rabbits and mice and rats. So we actually have a really good healthy population of great horned owls across most of Canada, the US, and even down into Central and South America. So we have great horned owls living in just a huge number of habitats all throughout this kind of hemisphere is where we can find them. I was gonna scroll back. I did see a couple of kind of comments and questions maybe as we went through, so I'm just gonna quick scroll back and check out if I missed any of them. Hello again to our guest from Belgium. I still get so excited every time I see that. That's really, really cool. Hopefully most of you, it sounds like, are probably living in places where we do have great horned owls, in places like Belgium, our neighbors across the Atlantic and the Pacific. They don't have great horned owls, but there are some other very large kind of cousins of the great horned owl that live across Europe and Asia. We see the Eurasian eagle owl. It's kind of a very large cousin of the great horned owl. As we get further north up into the Arctic, actually all around the North Pole, we have their cousin, the snowy owl, who's living kind of on the ground there. We have a lot of other kind of great horned owl cousins living around the world, which is pretty exciting. All kind of similar in this kind of larger build with the kind of feather tufts, these really big round eyes. There's just some pretty top predators are all kind of the cousins of the great horned owl. If you like the kind of scientific terminology, their genus, which is kind of like the kind of closest family members. Think of kind of like your extended family. Whereas we also have kind of the larger owl family, which is kind of like your distant cousins that are all kind of similar, but you're not that closely related at that point. But kind of their extended family that great horned owls are in is a genus called the Bubo genus of owls, where they get their scientific name, Bubo virginianus. It's what we call the great horned owl in kind of our scientific world. So the Bubo genus of owls has these nice big owls that are hunting a lot of really large prey animals. We also have, hello Samantha from Evie and Maxine. Hello everyone. Well folks, thank you so much for joining us. This was Tiger with Wings, the Great Horned Owl by Barbara Esbensen and illustrated by Mary Barrett Brown. Again, I just love all of the detail that goes into the illustrations in this book, so I was really excited to encounter it. Again, this has been Samantha, one of our resident great horned owls, who's been with us here at the Raptor Center for a number of years, almost 3 decades at this point, of teaching people about great horned owls. If you were interested and excited by this close-up time spent with this great horned owl, check out the link that I posted in the description for our Sponsor a Raptor program, where you can get your own kind of close-up and personal videos and visits with a bird species here at the Raptor Center. You can also check out for other kind of online program opportunities. You can check out our website at theraptorcenter.org. You can also keep an eye here on our Facebook page and on our Instagram account at the Raptor Center to kind of keep posted and see lots more bird pictures and videos and news and updates and all that good stuff. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us. We will see you again next week for more Reading with Raptors. Have a great week until then, everyone.